There will be smiles of satisfaction at fireside suppers that feature Nathalie's hearty Reuben soup, fennel and carrot salad, and whole wheat olive bread. The smooth, sweet flavors of oranges and ginger custard round out the perfect prepare-ahead meal.
Hello, I'm Nathalie Dupree, and when we're thinking about busy days, we also know that we have to plan for fun times like fireside suppers or Super Bowl party. And for that, I'm going to do a Reuben soup. Now, I don't see any reason why you can't buy things that have kind of helped you along the way. For instance, corned beef. Beef brisket comes from the front part of the animal. It's the front part of the breast. And it doesn't have a bone in it like it does in some smaller animals, because the bone, of course, is closer to the animal than the front part of the beef. Now, this is a package that the corned beef comes in. Depends on where you live as to where it's packaged. This is packaged in Atlanta, but obviously some is packaged in New York. New Yorkers swear, in fact, that corned beef from New York is better than corned beef from Atlanta because their water's better, they say. Those great cooks debates, what can I tell you? But anyway, corned beef is already cooked. And so this beef brisket is more than just a beef brisket. It's a pre-cooked corned beef brisket. And you can corn it yourself, either get your own allspice and all the other spices that go into it and simmer it, and then salt it and so forth. Or there's an actual package that you can buy now that has beef ready to be corned, but you get to do the actual process of corning it yourself. And I like doing that myself. But when you're busy, you don't have time to do that. You want to get something that you can buy, put in the refrigerator, and keep till you need it. So you just cut the fat off. And try not to aim your knife towards yourself. Get a knife that feels good to your hand, and not every knife is the same for each process. I want to move my teacup here. This is a beautiful Limoges pattern from Tiffany's. American Garden, I think, is the name of it. And as you may know, I'm a great tea drinker. I don't drink coffee, but I drink a lot of tea. So I normally have a teacup somewhere here on the set. I only have 2 of those. Poor me. Now let's see, go ahead and remove all that fat if you'd like, and then go ahead and cut your meat into little cubes. I'm going to put this butter on to get it heating again. I had it melted and it was starting to turn, and as soon as I hear it sizzle, I'm going to add some flour to it, but I'll let that go. Now go ahead and cut this into cubes. Oh, about like this. Here we go. You just want to cut any part of that fat or gristle out and put it aside. Here's some. I cut mine a little smaller than I should. And let me just move this out of the way. It'll be a little easier to work with once I've got that done. And you want to thinly slice your cabbage. Let's see if I'm going to... Sometimes I feel like everything underneath my whole stove is going to collapse. Let me show you how to slice the cabbage right here. And then in my large stock pot, I'm going to mix the sauerkraut. This has been heating up. That's a nice, thick enamel cookware. My cabbage. I didn't talk too much about slicing that cabbage. There's no reason why you can't do it in a food processor if you'd like. And some beef stock. And this comes straight from the can. I wouldn't use luscious homemade beef stock for this if I could possibly avoid it. I mean, in other words, why would you use something that was so time-consuming to make when you can just get a canned product that works perfectly satisfactory? And bring that to the boil. And when it's up nice and boiling, pretend that that's boiling, add chopped onion, chopped garlic, and some Dijon mustard. And this whole thing simmers just for 15 to 20 minutes. If you need more stock, add it to keep the liquid level up. Now, while it's simmering, life is perfect. This is now melted. Melt some butter in a small skillet. Stir in some flour. Now that's going to make a roux. And roux are called different names. There's a white roux and a blonde roux and a black roux, and each one of them has a different flavor. As this flour expands and it increases its thickening power until it starts to turn color, and then the darker you get it, the less thickening effect it has, because of course if you scorch those flour granules then they don't thicken as much. So you want it to be a nice light golden brown, and I won't have time to let that sit the whole time and get brown. So I'm going to go ahead and put this over the heat. This is the one that's the right color. This is a white roux right here, and this is a light brown roux. Many times we use a spoon to kind of tell you what color, a wooden spoon to tell you what color you want it to be. So when it's the right color, then you add some more beef stock right here. And that's cold, and there's no reason why you can't add a cold stock to a cold roux. The difference is that if your roux is hot when you add your stock, then the starch granules are expanded and swelled, and they absorb the hot liquid faster and easier, and you don't have to stir it the whole time. If you add a cold stock to a cold roux, then you really have to stir it the whole time because it might lump on you. So do that. And then what we have here is we have some tomato paste. A little mustard's not going to hurt that, is it? Salt. Pepper. And then I've got everything else pre-measured on my plate, and it's such a good idea if you can pre-measure your stuff. Of course, you can do it on wax paper if you want to too, but I want to show you each thing when it goes in, so I use a plate like this. But it's so nice to know that you have everything there, because you can easily not have the paprika or the caraway seeds, and this is what's going to give this Reuben soup its wonderful flavor. And then you have some salt and pepper. Kind of pre-measure it if you can, but many times you don't know exactly how much you want in a recipe. And you just cook stirring it until it's thick. Now, when I go to New York, I always want a Reuben sandwich. That's partly because of the pumpernickel that you can get there too, although this is a nice Atlanta variety of pumpernickel. We have a lot of, it's wonderful the way that fresh bread is now coming into our things. Let me just show you this pumpernickel real quick while I have a chance. Just get your pumpernickel and slice it into cubes. And this is a great thing to do with leftover or stale bread, because it can use a little body when it goes into that soup. So there's your cubes, maybe just a little smaller. Now, I've got my brisket. I want to add my cube brisket in here. I don't know why that's deciding not to boil yet. It's on. Yep. But you add your cube brisket, and that cooks about 5 minutes or until it's heated through. Don't forget that brisket is cooked. So just go ahead and add that. Now go ahead and ladle your soup into some bowls, and here's the way it looks once the whole thing has cooked down. Go ahead, ladle your soup into your bowls. This is a perfect busy meal day, and if you've got some football fans there, garnish it with the croutons and some grated Swiss cheese. How bad could that be? I'll just show you the cheese here. Pop your cheese in to this little mouli grater. Get it all lined up right. Just about right. And just grate away, and you have a nice grated cheese. Of course, you can do that in the food processor too. And there are different size grates that come with a mouli so that you can get different size pieces. Here's my fennel and carrot salad. This gets better the longer you keep it. This is fennel, which is also called anise, finocchio, and you can use the fronds for some things and the bulb for others. One of the reasons I like it is because it keeps a nice long while in the refrigerator, and so you can just pull it out, just like celery. When you need it, I love the flavor. Just, it's I guess one of my very favorite things to eat. Just slice it and peel and grate some carrots, and you don't need to see me do that again. Besides, I put the grater underneath again. So, and fry some bacon. The easiest way to fry bacon is in the microwave, but another way is just to lay it flat on a sheet and run it into the oven and just leave it there and come back and get it as you need it. But get it crisp and chop it. Chop some dill. Look how much the dill fronds look like the fennel fronds. So just get some dill and chop it. Chop a shallot, and I hope maybe a little later in the program I'll show you how to chop the shallot, and a little salt, pepper, whatever you need, and whisk together some Dijon mustard, some red wine vinegar, and some olive oil, salt and pepper to taste, and pour over the salad. A little sugar, that was sugar that I had in that bowl that I added. Salt, pepper, and sugar. Season and taste of salt and pepper. Pour it over the vegetables. Let it marinate. The longer, the better, you know, at least a day. It's delicious. It's perfect with that.
Hello there, I'm Robin Vitetta, and today we're going to talk about refrigerator storage. Many people have questions about what do you store in the refrigerator, what shelf do you put it on, how long do things last, what's the shelf life of some common foods, and I want to talk to you about that today because I think it's very important that we talk about it. Refrigerators are set up, whether they're set up side to side or top to bottom, it doesn't matter. They're set up in a way that the maximum chilling is in the top of the refrigerator. So that means that you would want to store foods that require maximum chilling on the top, and then as you work your way down, foods that require less and less chilling go on the lower shelves and then eventually into the drawers. Top shelf, now also remember in regards to maximum chilling, you want to make sure that you place the items in there so that you allow for maximum airflow. Foods need to have air circulating around them, the cold air, to ensure maximum chilling. So keep that in mind. Don't overstuff your refrigerator. Top shelf, maximum chilling, perfect for highly perishable foods. In this refrigerator you can see we have dairy items, we have milk, sour cream, yogurt, juices, and you want to keep your chilled gelatin, desserts, fruit desserts, those kinds of things belong on the top shelf. You can also see that we have a package of ground turkey breast. Highly perishable, fresh meats should go on the top shelf. But something you want to remember is that when you bring them home from the supermarket, not only do you immediately put them in the refrigerator, but wrap them up to make extra sure that they don't leak out and drip onto the lower shelves and cause possible cross-contamination. So double wrap them, put them in a sealable container, or put them in a resealable plastic bag to make sure that nothing drips to the lower shelves. Second shelf, now your refrigerator may have 3-4 shelves, so keep this in mind as you're looking at the way we have this set up. Second shelf is great for leftovers. I have leftover salads in here. You can put leftover meat dishes, those kinds of things. Open jars of condiments, pickles, relish, ketchup, mayonnaise, those kinds of things are great on the second shelf. Third shelf, I have eggs. Many people think that because the door has the egg holder and the egg shelf, that's where you're supposed to put your eggs. That's not necessarily true. Eggs do much better in a sealed container. When they are stored in the refrigerator door, they are confronted with repeated temperature fluctuations every time you open the door, possible breakage. They can absorb odors from other foods. You want to keep them in a sealed container. That way they can last weeks beyond the expiration date on the package. When you keep them in a sealed container, store them with the wider end up. That keeps the yolk centered. And one thing to remember when you're buying eggs, the packing date, the sell-by date that's on the package can, by law, be 30 days after the packing date. So when you buy your eggs, if you're close to the expiration date, there's a pretty good chance that they're already 30 days old. So you want to keep that in mind when you're buying your eggs. Store them in a sealed container on the bottom shelf. I also have a pie on the bottom shelf. You want to keep your fruit desserts, pies, cakes, those kinds of covered things on the bottom shelf, and anything that needs thawing or defrosting. If you're defrosting meats, keep them, again, tightly wrapped to prevent drippage into the lower shelves or the drawers and cause cross-contamination, because the drawers have your fresh vegetables, your fresh fruits, deli meats and cheeses, so you want to prevent any of the dripping from going into these foods. Use your door space for any overflow. Make sure that you have things like coffee and nuts. Tightly wrap your butter so it doesn't absorb any odors from the other foods. The butter storage container is great. Just wrap up your butter when you put it in here. Pretty much have a great idea of how to keep your refrigerator and your foods have a nice long life.
For nearly a century, Le Creuset's colorful French cookware has been a favorite in kitchens around the world. From its bold finishes and uncompromised quality to its easy-to-clean materials, the brand's range of iconic products are as easy to use as they are to love.
We'll show you a whole wheat olive bread because you may not want to serve your salad at the same time as your soup, particularly if people are juggling things on their laps and you don't have enough trays for everybody. You may want to serve them the soup first or the salad first, so you may want to serve a separate bread, in which case I don't think I'd serve pumpernickel twice. So dissolve 1 package of active dry yeast, which is this, and you can use the quicker rise breads if you want to, but first of all, I usually make my breads ahead of time and freeze them. I mean, you don't have to have a bread coming out of the oven when you're ready to eat, but you can make them ahead of time and freeze them. It certainly works very well. So there's some honey, and they're in a 1.25 cups of warm water. You want your water at about 105 to 115 degrees. This is an instant thermometer, although it looks like one of those meat thermometers. Then your yeast will proof. All we really need to do is dissolve it, but this is sitting under the lights, and it just gets so happy under the lights that it's alive and it eats and eats and eats and eats and grows. Here it is. So combine this yeast with a cup of finely chopped onions sauteed in a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Now that's a little rigid of a mixture. You can just use some cooked onions, and if I were you, I would just go ahead and cook some onions ahead of time sometime. In fact, I cook batches of onions for the week and put them in the refrigerator and then just pull them out as I need them. Then you have a teaspoon of salt and a cup of coarsely chopped olives. I didn't get to show you how to chop a shallot, and I may not get a chance to show you how to chop those olives. And 2 tablespoons of finely chopped thyme, and then add 2.5 cups of whole wheat flour. Now you already know that this is going to be a little denser flour than a white bread, but not any denser than that pumpernickel. And then add enough bread flour, 1/2 cup at the time, to make a stiff dough. And it may take 1.5 cups or 2 cups, but look, this doesn't even appear that it's going to take any. So you just have to see. Every dough is different, and it depends on how the flour's been stored, how humid it is out, all of those kinds of things. I'm going to take my little flour shaker, which counts as some flour, and turn this out. And you just knead it until the dough bounces back. We always say soft like a baby's bottom, or else smooth and elastic. Takes a little bit more here. And you never know, as I said, how much flour it's really going to take. Then, when it has been kneaded enough, and this is not there, I don't have one to show you that's been kneaded enough, it bounces right back, and you can see that that's not kneaded enough. Give it another 5 minutes or so by hand. That's why I really like the food processor. But in this case, you might be worried about chopping the olives up too much. Now, put it in an oiled plastic bag, let it double. Of course, if you're using the other new yeasts, you don't have to let it double that first time, but I like it. I think it's got more flavor, but and then take it out, and I don't know if you can see this. If you put 2 fingers into it, they don't bounce back. So that would be the opposite of this guy. In other words, this is kneaded enough and it's punching you back, and this is relaxed and happy. Okay. If you want to put that in a bowl, you just cover it with oiled plastic wrap or a towel, and it doubles in bulk, which is what this is. Push it down. You want to keep it in a warm but not hot place. Divide the dough in half and shape it into 2 round loaves. I just push it under like that. There are lots of different ways to shape a loaf, but there we go. Flatten them slightly. Put them on an oiled sheet. But you know, many times if you use a baking sheet over and over again, you don't need to oil it. They double again, which is here. You know, we have to make 5 doughs every time we do it. We have one that's double, one that's kneaded enough, one that's doubled, which I just did. Then this gets doubled again. And now you bake it at 375 degrees until it's well browned, about 35 to 45 minutes. And the loaves will sound hollow when they're tapped. Cool them on a wire rack. They should register 200 degrees inside. Now, oranges with ginger custard. It serves 4 to 6 people. And you mix your yolks right here together with milk, cream. You have egg yolks in here, sugar in the spill here. I should crack that extra egg and get it in here. I'll do it if I have a second. Cream. Some finely chopped fresh ginger. I've got some done here. I'm going to go back and do all my chopping at the end if I have time, my chopping and my cracking. And then put all of this mixture into a nice heavy saucepan. And you cook it over medium heat, stirring. Ideally, you've got everything mixed, but what you don't want to do is to get it real foamy with your whisk. So use your whisk if you have to, and I meant to show you before I put it in there that somebody had been whisking heavily in this lovely enamel pan, and you can do that. It doesn't really damage the pan, but you can see where it did it, and I don't like that. I love my pans. So I try not to use metal on metal. And you just keep stirring this until it coats the back of a spoon. A lot of recipes say that you want to bring it up to a boil, but don't let it boil. It's very confusing. Really, the mixture should reach 170 degrees. That's when an egg yolk is just swelled up and it's most glorious for a custard. So go ahead here, and you see it coats the back of a spoon. It's a pretty spoon. And just go right down the center, and that tells you that it's coated. Now you strain your mixture to remove any bits of cooked egg, and you can strain it through here if you'd like. And also that gets rid of that ginger that's been in there, which would be a little harsh for that, of course, and it also would be a little bitty. Here is another strainer, a conical sieve, and I love this. It's particularly used when you're making a fine French sauce. And it's also called a tamis. So then stir in your vanilla extract. You know you don't cook vanilla extract. Stir that all together there. And then you refrigerate it, covered at least 2 hours or up to 2 days. Now, remove the peel and pith, which is the white part from the oranges. You don't want any white on it. And there are a couple of different ways you can do that. You can cut right into your orange here, down to your orange like that. And cut off the end. Oop. And you see then it'll cut right down. I'll go right down with it. Get a little sharper knife. I didn't grab the right knife for this, so this one is serrated and not doing as well for this particular technique. The technique that's a little better for the serrated knife, you would flunk cordon bleu if you made an orange look like that. Another technique is to go around like this if you're using a serrated knife. There we go. Now you slice it into wagon wheels. You're supposed to hold it up straight. Put it into wagon wheels. Do you like that phrase? And then you arrange it on your individual plates and top each with some custard. Of course, you wouldn't, no, neither one of these have been cooked. I mean, both of these have been cooked, I was saying. Ooh, isn't that lovely? Now, if you want to heighten the ginger flavor, you can sprinkle some finely chopped candied ginger over the custard. And if there's any custard left over, it'd be a great filling for eclairs or cream puffs. You might have to thicken it just a little bit more. How bad could that be?
The hearty flavors of Reuben soup and fennel and carrot salad will become fast favorites in your household. Complement them with whole wheat olive bread and oranges with ginger custard for a delicious treat for your family and friends.